Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Tony?
All right. You know, I'm still alive. The world's still in trouble.
Is it? I haven't been paying attention.
The world's always in trouble.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Well, then it's the same then, I guess.
So we've been talking about the music scene here in Westchester,
Where we are right now.
which, you know, it's suburbs.
It is. It is a large. I think it's the largest suburb in the universe, actually. In this part of it, I don't think there's a bigger suburb in the universe. NASA is working on that, but maybe they'll come up with something, and then we'll be able to say, okay, it's the third biggest or something. But right now.
So you started WeSPaC when?
In 2006.
And what? How old were you then?
I was like 21, 22.
So you are an old fart now.
I am. I'm 27. I have a couple white hairs in my beard. It's that's it.
And so would you say right from the start? What did you have? Was it easy? Was it easy to get things going?
It was, because there was a huge kind of wave that existed from. Actually, the first show I gave out flyers at bowling alley show that a band called the Cleave Agents did. They were a really, really big band, really good, and because they were so good, they could play with the indie rock bands, and they could also kind of play with the punk bands, and it was just because they were a phenomenal poppy punk band.
And they were from where?
They were from Scarsdale, New Rochelle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that scene, our scene kind of came, the WeSPaC scene kind of came into it from that and from the BC thing that's been documented.
Well, just to recap, the BC scene is or was
BC Records, Blue Velvet, and the Vibration were a very big band on that. They toured London, and they're very good. They're a little bit like Slater-Kinney. But they had a bunch of other influences that kind of was kind of.
So now we'll scooch to. So you started this in 2007. 2006.
Yeah.
Late 2006.
September
2006. So just when school's starting, and you threw up flyers everywhere, and you started getting kids from because they have no place else to go.
Nowhere to go except for the mall. And we wanted to be an alternative to the mall.
Exactly. And so what were some of the other bands that you were talking about?
Well, I have a bunch of bands here that I guess I'm just gonna go into all of them and talk about them real quick, if that's all right.
Yes.
I'm gonna start with the Fetal Orchestra. Was a band that existed before WeSPaC, who was really influential on me. Making records. They had this song, I had a dream that I was a superhero. It was really good. A band called the Aphrodites existed that was really good.
So what style? Just if you could.
Aphrodites were like, oh man, I can't even explain it. They were like kind of like a grungly, more like metally sounding Velvet Underground thing. They were a great band. Later on, a post-2008 band was a band called Two States that got their name from the Pavement song. Later on, another post-2008 band is Mammo Jam.
Were these high school bands?
They're all high school bands, and I don't know if you agree.
If you can give me the school where they were going to, that would be great.
Mammo Jam was an Ardsley band, and they sounded a little bit like my band, a little bit like Whack, a little bit like the Meters. They're a really phenomenal band.
I think I did see them.
You saw them at WeSPaC.
I did see them.
Yeah. And just to go more towards the punky, I already mentioned the Cleave Agents. There's a really good band called Zombie Pit Crew, and that was like kind of around in 2004. And another band like that was around post 2008 called the Screaming Bastards, and they both had this kind of like Epic Records sound Social Distortion. And they were both really good in different ways. Zombie Pit Crew, Johnny Giovanni had this whole kind of aura, and Screaming Bastards kind of had a. They
have a Celtic sound. I mean, that's what they morphed into. When I see them, they were doing definitely a Celtic kind of thing, which was very good.
They're a very good band. Just more of the high school punk bands. There's a band called Heads First that was really good. JCD was another one. One of my favorites was a band called JCD.
What school? What school or area were these from? And what
JCD
what era?
and the Surrogates, I think of them as like Upper Westchester. And then there was a good band called Erroneous George that was part of that scene, but they were funkier. So that was really cool. Heads First, I'm not really sure where they were from, but they played the first WeSPaC show, and they were a really good band. And then post 2008, there was a band called the Suicide Addicts. And they were awesome because some of their songs were about smoking pot, and some of their songs were about hating cops.
They were from Harrison,
They were
right?
from Harrison,
Right,
which
I
is,
did see them.
to me, one of the most oppressive
Right.
towns in Westchester. Like Harrison Police, or well, it's on a video.
It's a small town.
It's a small town.
It's a small town.
Yeah,
small town, small mind.
So they were awesome because
I think it's a uniform choice song.
It's a uniform choice song,
Right.
exactly. And later on, towards the end of 2010, I just wanted to say some of the biggest shows, and one of the kids I thought would carry it on was a kid named Jeremy, who was in a band called UN Posse. They were like a ska band, but he was really, he was doing shows in like 2011 in New Rochelle that were big shows.
Right.
I mean, I live in the city. I've lived in the city since 2010, but I was kind of aware. I thought, oh, maybe he'll carry.
When did Paul Schaefer open up?
Paul Schaefer, I think it was like 2009 to late 2010. It was a year and a half, and we were actually broken up by the same kind of guy Hipster Cop is, and I'm very involved in Occupy now. But he was, as involved as someone can be, or someone who works. But anyway, like a lot of us, it's a very big movement. But a community affairs officer came in and broke up our house. Same kind of thing that Hipster Cop is. So then maybe moving to some of the more mellow music and maybe what I call the Pleasantville scene, one of the very big acts that drew a lot of people was Aaron Maine. He's still playing shows. So he was very big. There's a band called Seth and the Swan and a band called Buffalo Eskimo. They were all from Pleasantville. And to me, there's like a sort of a cohesive sound to that scene. There's actually a video about the Westchester scene that talks a lot about those bands. Into a more folky side, there's Anthony DaCosta, who he plays a ton of shows, and he played WeSPaC a lot, and a band called, a girl called Emily Brodsky, who's very charismatic, who played a lot of shows, and actually he's played with Anthony. They used to do Leonard Cohen song together at WeSPaC. It was always very good. There's a band called...
Which song?
I think it was the Chelsea Hotel, the same one that Jeffrey Lewis has a song about. It's a band called LMNOP.
That was a Nico song.
Chelsea Girls is a Nico album,
Right.
but I Remember You Well at the Chelsea Hotel is the Leonard Cohen song.
Right.
LMNOP was a band by Kristen Barry who did a lot of shows herself in White Plains at the time I was doing WeSPaC, and now she's involved in the Silent Barn scene. There was another band called Some Tasty Donuts, STD, which was a band that was in WeSPaC that I actually really liked. I thought the girl was a great songwriter. A band called the Silent K's that was sort of in that scene. And then there's a band called the Rosham Bros who are still playing now. You should go see them. If you don't see them, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you, not for them, because they're a good band. They're still around, and they were part of the WeSPaC scene too. Just about the Paul Schaefer's house, some bands that haven't been talked about and that are still around right now is Jesse Karsten has a band. It's really good. He writes really good songs. Darb Mardnock is incredible. It's Amy who lived in the Paul Schaefer's house, and she has this, it's very conceptual music. She has a song, man, I'm trying to think of one of
We'll edit later.
Yeah, if you killed yourself, no one would care is one of her songs. It's very, and it has the kind of ABBA feel, but she has this whole thing where it's just very depraved and amazing. And then Old Table, of course, is my good friend Will. His album The Bear was a huge influence on my new album, my new Genuine Imitations album. And he worked with Jeff too. Jeff too. Will knows Jeff well, but his songs are just incredible.
We're talking about Jeff Duncanson, who kind of like bridges a lot of this stuff between the things that I was involved with at RoCkiN ReX and into the WeSPaC scene. So Jeff Duncanson would be a bridge. And
BC Records, he was in Blue Velvet.
Right.
Gingerbird Studios, he's recorded all my
Right.
albums. He recorded an album with The Vibration. And then just going back, there was a band called the Kesners in Yonkers that were very, very good. Mike Delaney, or Mike Kesner, his songs are awesome. A band called I Sit Next to Pete on the Bus, which was also part of the.
See, we're already at 10 minutes here. I don't know if you knew that, but that's how fast time goes.
Wow. Okay.
So I only have 3 minutes.
Well, why don't I? Is there any way to like?
I only have 3 minutes.
That was 10 minutes.
That was 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes. I'm Tony. I ran RoCkiN ReX. There's videos of me up online also. I ran record stores starting in the early 80s, and I ran my store, the RoCkiN ReX, from 90 to 95. I had many bands play at my store, stay at my store. It was a way of life. That's all this is a way of life. And I wanted to bring up some of the bands now, some of the things that maybe were forgotten in the article, and that would be John Franco, who worked at my store. He has a record label called Dead City Records, and they've released probably 36 records from bands from all over the world. They're from Buchanan, Dead City, and his bands were No Win Situation, Awkward Thought, both well known in the New York hardcore scene. I went to high school with Paul from Sheer Terror. So all these bands, kind of that nexus revolves around that. I'm from Yonkers, born, bred, whatever it is in Yonkers, and with some of the stuff that wasn't addressed in the article, which would be some of the Yonkers bands, because Yonkers gets dumped on. It just does. And we have Ralph, who runs Haunted Hotel. Again, he's probably got somewhere near probably 50 or 60 releases on Haunted Hotel. And Ralph and I are going to be releasing a record by Jamie Hammer's band, which is called Abject. This is his second band. He had Dealing With It. That was when I was not really doing anything. I was just staying home with the kids. And I think we're probably at almost 13 minutes.
Where are people going to be able to get that record, Dealing With It?
No, this is the Abject single. The Abject single is going to be about 39 hours, something like that. 39 hours in a Bronx detention because the band got stopped in Mount Vernon for a kind of an illegal search and seizure. So they spent some time in booking. So we're going to be releasing that between a split release between Jamie and Ralph and Haunted Hotel and I. And we're going to be doing our best to get it out there across the country. You know, I've got some old contacts. You know, hopefully Ralph's got some contacts, and hopefully we can revitalize some of the, you know, the more hardcore stuff. Not that that's the only thing I'm interested in, but this is where I'm going with it. And these are a lot of my friends, people I've known for decades now at this point.
It just hit 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you want to try and do that again, or make it 20 minutes maybe, and then I can like keep?
I mean, I have 13. That's all that's on the tape.
Do you want to record it over then, so we can try and split up the time more equally?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
I don't know. I kind of don't want to.
I'm fine with it because what I'm saying is I'm going to be promoting things now. It was good to address all the old stuff.
Yeah.
It really was.
But I'd like to hear you talk about Stress Boy and hear you talk about like more of the store, and I kind of want to.
Maybe we'll see how this goes, and maybe we'll do that. But 13 minutes it seems it's a lot for.
Just talking about the records you were putting out right now, which were, if you want to just say it again, it was
it's an Abject single EP, again with split release between me, Ralph from Haunted Hotel, and the band Jamie Hammer and Abject. Jamie's a great kid. I remember him as a little kid. Not that he was ever little, but I remember the little kid at the tail end of my store. I don't know if he was into. I think he said at the time he wasn't into all the punk or the hardcore stuff. My store started in 1990. I was open for 5 years. That was concurrent to Tower opening up pretty much the same time. I think 6 months before I opened up. And clearly they were a major store, and they I had already been running stores in this area. Mad Platters, I'd worked there. I was hanging out there in the, circa 1980, buying Clash records and Gang of Four stuff and some of the early new wave stuff at the time.
Maybe before we get to maybe your first shows at RoCkiN ReX, I could ask you about some of the bands, hardcore bands that were in Westchester in the early 80s.
There weren't any hardcore bands. There were power pop bands. There was the Go from Yonkers. They were clearly the best band. They have a song called Instant Reaction, and that got played on WNEW at the time. Got the single from them. I saw them a couple of times at the Left Bank. The Left Bank was the place to go. I mean, so many bands played there.
Didn't you tell me once Black Flag played there?
Black Flag played there, 1982. That was with a co-headline with the Angelic Upstarts, and the Angelic Upstarts had released a kind of a heavy new wave record called Never Say Die around that time. Things had changed even for the UK punk stuff. Hardcore was just really starting at the time. I mean, I knew about bands like Minor Threat, but I didn't particularly like them at the time. I thought the sound was great. Some of what they were kind of preachy about was a little too preachy to me. New York bands that I remember seeing around that time was Urban Waste. Urban Waste were frickin' great. This was really before it was called hardcore, and the term at the time was thrash, and the bands wanted to be as fast as possible. So the bands that were as fast as possible didn't have all this moshy stuff. That came a couple of years later. I went to high school with Paul from Sheer Terror. At the time, he sang backup vocals in a band called Fathead Suburbia. Now that's been bootlegged. And we used to stay at the bassist from that was Josh, and he had a place up in Rochambeau. You were saying Rochambeau's before, something like that. Rochambeau's. Well, Rochambeau Avenue was an avenue in the Bronx, and it was the last train stop, and then the bus from the 20 bus would come up to Yonkers. So sometimes we would go to these shows downtown, either CB's or Danceteria, or there were so many dives at the time. Great Gildersleeves, the Ritz shows. We'd go to some of these shows. I remember seeing Minor Threat, Great Gildersleeves. The other New York band that was really good that I really liked was Reagan Youth. I saw them a couple of times. I remember seeing them at CB's, and then they had a band. They had a band, and I found this out from Paul again, that yes, they were banned, and it was literally a publicity stunt for them to kind of take off on the banned in DC thing, that Reagan Youth wanted to get banned from playing at CB's.
He like Bad Brain.
He did. Hilly at the time, the kids at those shows, this was a mix of suburban kids that came in. They clearly had money, and then there was the kids who were just right from there in Queens, and clearly they did not have any money. So there was always a schism there. We're going to talk about schisms.
Maybe we could move forward now to talk about the beginning of the RoCkiN ReX and who played those first shows there. What were the first big bands? I can think of Stress Boy from the DVD of the RoCkiN ReX, but maybe you can expand about them and tell me about all the other ones I don't know about, but maybe chronologically, starting with, did RoCkiN ReX open 1990?
Yeah. You said you had a band called Something George that was a kind of a soul funky kind of thing.
Erroneous George.
Erroneous George. We had Furious George. Furious George was a precursor band to Pumpernickel, and precursor to that was Junebug, and they were high school kids from Scarsdale and from also the Pleasantville area, I guess, up in that area, Mount Pleasant area. And that was Mark Ospavat and Alec, and they went to Hackley School. And Mark was very interested in all sorts of recording, and he now runs a studio, M&D, down in Brooklyn. Stress Boy were influenced by what was the lookout style bands, the pop punk bands that were clearly becoming popular in that mid 90s period.
Where was Stress Boy from?
Scarsdale, Tarrytown, and Ardsley, I think. Yeah, yeah, Tarrytown and Scarsdale, really. So it was a mix. It was a meeting place. That's what I always said about my store. It was a meeting place. It was kind of like Facebook before Facebook. It was a place where everybody met, and I didn't make any money. Nobody made any money. I had the Plow. Plow came from Westchester, Pennsylvania, of all places, and they just showed up at the door one day.
The bizarro world.
They couldn't play at some friend's house because the neighbors found out about it because the parents were away. They had a record with them, the dance like I never, the dance and the Timmy's and Arsonist, their first or second EP, and I put it on. I said, absolutely, you can play, and we had shows with them that where there would be upwards of 300-400 kids, and they'd be hanging out outside the store. Clearly, the cops would come.
No problem.
The cops would come. There's the Tales of Juvenile Delinquency that's up online about that. John Franco worked at my store, and he had a band called No Win Situation. They evolved into Awkward Thought, or he dissolved that and became Awkward Thought. And he also, like I think I said, Dead City Records. But now we're on to what's happening now. I was talking about Jamie and some of the other bands from that time. Weird Harold were great. Again, I'd love to put out that record. I'm trying to put out the Stress Boy record. We may put out an LP on that maybe a little bit later. We're talking about that. Yeah, Junebug were a band that hundreds of people would show up for them. Big-Headed Batman and Jiker, that was Casey MaSbaCk, and Jake and Brian Durniak on drums. I had Sick and Mad, which was a guy named Happy. I just friended him online, Michael Winiger. I can't, probably not pronouncing his name correctly. Happy was great. I met him at when I worked at Record Stop. Record Stop I worked at after Mad Platters, and that was from '86 to '89. Then I worked at Bleecker Bob's for a while. I was driving a cab while I was doing that. I was even driving a cab when I had the store, sometimes to pay Joey.
Was it anything like the show Taxi?
The store?
The driving a cab, was it anything?
Sure, yeah. I guess I kind of look like, what's his name? I would say the store. I'd say so much of the store came right. I don't know if I got a tinfoil hat on, but the characters from High Fidelity.
Really?
If you wanted.
Was there a Jack Black?
Joey was Jack Black. Totally.
Wow.
Do you know?
So you're Rob then?
Yeah, I guess in a way.
There you go.
And the other character was more like John Franco, very quiet, but the difference is the physical stature. But Jack Black and Joey Intervallo, if they were not separated at birth, I do not know.
I wanted to bring up a band that was an influence on my band. That's from Westchester, the band Too Much Joy. Can you tell me a little bit about them?
I lived in Tim Quirk's basement. Tim was already out of the house. He was going to school at that time. Chris was the last of the Quirk brothers, and he was there. And that's when I was working. That was when I was working at Record Stop. I didn't know Tim that well. I've heard that he had a band before that was a more punk rock band. I don't know anything more about it. I would love if Tim would talk to me about it. I would love to hear about it. I'm friends with some of the people around Chris. Andre, Aaron Feldstein was somebody who was very close with at that point. We had a band that played at Scarsdale High School. At the alternative school for one of the graduations, and we were like a Cramps style kind of band, and this was '85, and we did 86, and we did a cover of it's a song on the Too Much Joy, the Too Much Going On album on Candy Records, Paklido. We did a great cover of that. I had other bands after that. One was a band called Glinda, which is sort of the name from the witch from the Wizard of Oz.
It's a good name.
And we were like a very scuzz rock band. Those guys dumped me because my voice kind of sucks. I have a geeky kind of voice, and they got the girl who was the singer, who was the dancer for the Butthole Surfers, and became Bemmy Seed.
Huh?
That was Michael Albin. Michael had a huge house up in the middle of Scarsdale, and the bassist was a guy named Eric from Boston. That was circa 1986. We practiced a handful of times. Before that, I had a hardcore band with James from Unholy Swill, and we practiced in the basement of Mad Platters. We did covers of Dead Kennedys, Chemical Warfare, and Slayer's Chemical Warfare. Because I said, I don't want to do that one. I said, let's do Dead Kennedys. I think we tried that once or twice. It was too punk rock for the drummer, Dante.
He got tired quick, I guess.
No, he liked it, but he felt it was too simple. Dante Renzi, Dante had his family had a deli. Anyway, we're going way off base here.
Great. Well, do you want to? Is there anything more you'd like to say, or do you want to try and close it up? Maybe say leave people. Daytona Ma. You were telling me about that before. What does that mean?
Wherever the day kind of like wherever the day takes you, kind of thing. And I guess I learned that from reading up on the Sex Pistols, Jamie Reed kind of stuff, and that's the way I ran the store. That's the way it's the way to be. So get off the cell phones, get off the internet, use it a little bit, but make records.
I just wanted to
remember records.
I just wanted to leave people with, if you're in Westchester now and you're in high school and you think you can't play an instrument very well and you're unsure if you should start a band or not, you should totally do it. Just start a band, just do it. Nothing's ever over, nothing's ever too much in the past or already happened. Some of the best music is made by teenagers who don't know what they're doing.
It's always the best.
It's always the best. Okay, I guess we'll leave people with that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, just adding another little addendum on the end here. Some other things I forgot to mention. I still have some CiRCa CDs left. Anybody wants to drop by the house, I still got some. And also John Henry's Truth in Needles. Should be getting some more of these from John. John also from the Rexco days. Known him for about 20 years now. Good friends with Joey. This is a great CD. Yonkers stuff, Queen's stuff. It's great. Great stuff. Truth in Needles. So all this stuff can be had from me, Tony, RoCkiN ReX, 102 Robertson Ave, White Plains. I'm an old school kind of guy. I don't mind having people drop in. The phone number is 914-948-6450. Best to call me 10 a.m. to about 7 p.m. Appointments are best. I can't really have any kids over. That would be kind of weird. So you know, if your parents want to come over, that's about it. But because I'm an old dude, man, so that'd be kind of weird. But there we go.